I never believed in fate until the day I heard those cries. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and I was cutting through Riverside Park on my way home from my shift at the bookstore. The autumn air was crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and distant rain. I had my headphones in, lost in my own world, when a sound pierced through the music, a desperate, heart-wrenching wailing that made my chest tighten instinctively. I stopped walking. My omega instincts flared to life before my brain could catch up, a primal urge flooding my system. Babies. Distressed babies. I shouldn't have looked. I should have kept walking. Getting involved with another alpha's children was dangerous, possibly even illegal depending on how territorial the parent was. But my feet moved on their own, drawn toward the sound like a moth to flame. Behind a cluster of oak trees, I found them. Two identical toddlers, no more than 18 months old, sat on a blanket surrounded by scattered toys. They were both sobbing so hard their faces had turned red, little fists rubbing at their eyes. Their scent hit me immediately, pure alpha even at such a young age. Strong and clean, like pine forests after a storm. I glanced around frantically. No parent in sight. No one watching them. My heart hammered against my ribs. Where is their guardian? How long have they been alone? Hey, I whispered, kneeling down slowly so I wouldn't startle them. Hey, little ones. It's okay. The first baby, wearing a blue onesie, turned toward my voice, his crying stuttering into hiccups. His brother, dressed in green, continued to wail. I reached out carefully, letting them catch my scent. It was risky. If their alpha parent arrived now, they might think I was trying to steal their children. But I couldn't just leave them here, terrified and alone. The moment my scent reached them, something extraordinary happened. Both babies went quiet. Completely, utterly silent. They stared at me with wide, tear-filled eyes the color of dark amber. Then, as if pulled by invisible strings, they both lunged forward, tiny hands grasping at my jacket. Okay, I breathed, gathering them into my arms. They were heavier than I expected, solid and warm. They immediately burrowed into my neck, little noses pressing against my scent glands. I felt the exact moment they relaxed, their small bodies going soft and trusting against my chest. A purr rumbled through me, an omega's instinctive response to soothing distressed young. I couldn't help it. These babies needed comfort, and my body was responding whether I wanted it to or not. Where's your papa, I murmured, rocking them gently. Or your mama? The one in blue made a small cooing sound. The one in green had already started to drowse, his thumb finding its way into his mouth. My heart clenched painfully. They were so sweet, so perfect. For just a moment, I let myself imagine what it would be like to have pups of my own someday. Then I felt it. The air changed. Pressure built around me like an approaching storm, heavy and electric. The scent hit me next, powerful, overwhelming alpha pheromones that screamed of fury and fear and mine. I looked up. A man was striding toward me across the park, and my breath caught in my throat. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with broad shoulders and dark hair slightly disheveled. His face could have been carved from stone. Sharp jaw, straight nose, eyes that burned like coals even from a distance. He wore an expensive suit, the jacket flapping open as he moved with predatory speed. And he was furious. Step away from my children. His voice was low, deadly calm, but I heard the threat underneath. The command of an alpha used to being obeyed. My omega instincts screamed at me to submit, to bow my head and bare my neck. But stronger than that was my protective urge. I tightened my arms around the babies, who were still peaceful against my chest. They were alone, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Crying. I said step away. He was close now, close enough that I could see the fear beneath the anger in his eyes. Fear for his children. Now. Please, don't startle them. He moved faster than I could track, closing the distance between us in a heartbeat. His hand shot out and I flinched, but he was reaching for the babies, not me. He lifted the one in green from my arms with surprising gentleness, despite the fury radiating from him. Give me my son, he demanded, hand extended for the second twin. I carefully transferred the baby in blue, my hands shaking slightly. The moment the alpha took him, both children began to wail again, the sound piercing and desperate. They reached back toward me, their little faces crumpling. The alpha's expression flickered, confusion, then something darker. Suspicion. What did you do to them? His eyes locked onto mine, and I saw the accusation there. What did you do? Nothing. They were crying and I comforted them. Did you scent mark them? His voice dropped to a growl. Did you bond with my children? No. It wasn't like that. Panic rose in my throat. I would never. But he was already backing away, twins screaming in his arms, his face a mask of cold rage. Stay away from my family. If I see you near them again, there will be consequences. Then he turned and strode away, leaving me kneeling on the grass, hands still warm from where I'd held his babies. I watched him disappear into the parking lot, the sound of crying fading into the distance. My chest felt hollow, aching in a way I didn't understand. Those babies needed comfort, and he'd looked at me like I was a threat. I gathered my bag with trembling hands and started home, trying to forget those amber eyes, both the babies and their fathers. I had no way of knowing this was just the beginning. 3 days passed and I couldn't stop thinking about those twins. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their tear-stained faces, felt their small bodies relaxing against mine. It was ridiculous. They weren't my children. I'd held them for maybe 10 minutes. Yet my omega instincts were going haywire, flooding me with an aching emptiness that made no sense. I threw myself into work, reorganizing the entire mystery section at the bookstore twice. My coworker Jenny kept asking if I was okay. I lied and said I was fine. On Thursday evening, I was restocking the children's section when the bell above the door chimed. I didn't look up, focused on alphabetizing picture books. We're open until 9 if you need help finding. You. That voice. Deep, commanding, unmistakable. I spun around and my heart stopped. The alpha from the park stood in the doorway, and he looked like he hadn't slept in days. His suit was wrinkled, his tie loose, dark circles under those intense eyes. But what struck me most was his expression, not angry this time, but desperate. He was holding both twins, one in each arm. They were crying, faces red and blotchy, their wails echoing through the quiet bookstore. How did you find me? I whispered. That doesn't matter. He moved closer and I instinctively stepped back, bumping into the bookshelf. They won't stop. 3 days and they won't stop crying. They don't sleep. I've tried everything. Doctors, specialists, everyone says they're physically fine, but they won't stop reaching for. He stopped, jaw clenching. For you. The baby in blue was stretching his arms toward me, whimpering. My chest constricted painfully. I don't understand, I said. I only held them for a few minutes. I don't understand either. His voice cracked slightly, and I realized just how exhausted he was. How utterly at the end of his rope. But you did something. Your scent, they imprinted on it somehow. And now they won't accept anyone else. That's not possible. Imprinting takes weeks, months even. Tell that to them. He shifted the babies, and I could see his arms trembling from holding them so long. Please. I'm begging you. Just hold them for a minute. Let them calm down. Then I'll leave and never bother you again. Every rational part of my brain screamed this was a terrible idea. Getting more involved would only make things worse. But those babies were suffering, and the sound of their cries was tearing me apart. Okay, I heard myself say. Okay. Just for a minute. The moment I took the first twin into my arms, his crying stopped like someone had flipped a switch. He burrowed into my neck, little body shuddering with leftover sobs. I reached for his brother, and the alpha hesitantly passed him over. Within seconds, both babies were quiet, their breathing evening out as they nuzzled against my scent glands. The silence was deafening. I looked up at the alpha and found him staring at us with an expression I couldn't read. Relief mixed with something darker. Resentment, maybe. Or fear. I'm Kai, I said softly, because the moment felt too strange not to introduce myself. Kai Chin. Theo Ashford. He ran a hand through his disheveled hair. And that's Milo and Mason. Though I'm guessing you don't need me to tell you which is which. I glanced down. Blue is Milo, green is Mason. How did you? He stopped, shaking his head. Of course you know. We stood there in awkward silence, the only sound the soft breathing of the twins. I could feel them falling asleep, their weight growing heavier in my arms. Mr. Ashford. Theo. Theo, I corrected. I don't know what happened in the park. I swear I didn't try to bond with them. I would never do that to someone's children. I know. His voice was quiet. I had you investigated. My head snapped up. You what? I needed to know who you were. If you were a threat. He met my eyes steadily. You're 26, work here part-time, rent a studio apartment in the Riverside district, no criminal record, no history of inappropriate behavior with children. You volunteer at the Omega Community Center on weekends. He paused. You're exactly what you appeared to be. Someone kind who helped children in distress. I didn't know whether to be angry or terrified that he'd dug into my life. That's invasive. I'm a single father protecting my children. No apology in his tone. I had to be sure. Single father? The words slipped out before I could stop them. His expression shuddered. Their mother is gone. It's just us. The pain in those words was palpable. I didn't push. Look, Theo said, his voice taking on a businesslike tone. I have a proposition. I need someone to help with the twins. My nanny quit last month, couldn't handle how fussy they've been. You clearly have a gift with them. I'll pay you triple what you make here, plus benefits. You'd work Monday through Friday, 8 hours a day. I stared at him. You want to hire me? You accused me of trying to steal your children 3 days ago. I was wrong. The admission seemed to cost him. And I'm desperate. They need you. I need. He stopped, jaw tightening. I need them to be okay. Mason stirred in my arms, making a small sound. I automatically adjusted my hold, swaying slightly. Theo's eyes tracked the movement. This is crazy, I whispered. I know. I don't know anything about being a nanny. You know how to comfort them. That's more than anyone else can do right now. He pulled out a business card, setting it on the counter beside us. Think about it. Call me tomorrow. What if it doesn't work long term? What if they stop responding to me? Something flickered in his eyes. Then we'll deal with that when it happens. He reached for Milo, carefully taking him from my arms. The baby whimpered but didn't wake fully. Then Mason. The moment they left my arms, I felt that hollow ache return, sharper than before. Theo paused at the door, twins sleeping peacefully against his shoulders now. He looked back at me, and for just a moment his carefully controlled expression cracked. Please, he said quietly. They've never had this before. I don't understand it, but I can't take it away from them. Then he was gone, leaving me standing alone in the children's section, his business card burning a hole in my peripheral vision. I picked it up with shaking hands. Theo Ashford, CO, Ashford Industries. I should throw it away. This was a disaster waiting to happen. Instead, I tucked it carefully into my pocket and tried to ignore how right it had felt to hold those babies again. I called Theo the next morning and accepted the job. 2 weeks later, I'd fallen into a routine that felt both surreal and oddly natural. Every morning at 8, I arrived at Theo's penthouse, a sprawling space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The twins would squeal when they saw me, abandoning their breakfast to toddle over on unsteady legs, arms outstretched. Theo would watch these reunions with an unreadable expression, coffee cup in hand, before leaving for work with a curt nod. He was always polite but distant. Professional. We barely spoke beyond necessary updates about the twins' schedules and needs. But slowly things began to shift. It started small. One evening, Theo came home early and found me on the living room floor, building block towers for Milo and Mason to gleefully destroy. Instead of heading to his office like usual, he loosened his tie and sat down across from us. They never played like this before, he said quietly, watching Mason stack 3 blocks with intense concentration. They were always so fussy, crying. They just needed the right person to play with them, I replied, helping Milo reach a higher block. No. Theo's eyes met mine, intense and searching. They needed you specifically. There's a difference. Before I could respond, Mason toddled over to his father and dropped a block in his lap. Dada, pay. Theo's entire expression transformed, softening into something so tender it made my chest ache. He pulled Mason into his lap, and soon Milo joined them, and I found myself watching this alpha cradle his sons with such obvious love that I had to look away. After that, Theo started coming home earlier. He'd join us for dinner, simple meals I'd prepare while the twins napped. At first, we ate in silence. Then one night he asked about my day, and somehow we ended up talking for an hour after the twins went to bed. I learned he'd built his company from nothing after his parents disowned him for having children out of wedlock. That the twins' mother had been an Omega he'd dated briefly, who disappeared the day after giving birth, leaving only a note saying she couldn't do it. I was terrified, he admitted, staring into his wine glass. I didn't know anything about babies. Didn't have anyone to help. And they cried constantly those first months. I thought I was failing them. You're not failing them, I said firmly. They're happy, healthy, love. That's what matters. His eyes lifted to mine, and something passed between us, a moment of understanding that made my pulse quicken. The domestic intimacy grew. Theo started staying for bath time, our hands accidentally brushing as we washed baby hair and played with rubber ducks. He'd read bedtime stories in that deep voice while I rocked whichever twin was fussier. We'd stand together in the nursery doorway afterward, watching them sleep, and I'd catch him looking at me instead of his sons. Then came the night that changed everything. I'd been working for Theo for 6 weeks when I woke at 2 a.m. to frantic knocking. I stumbled to my apartment door, barely awake, to find Theo standing there with both twins, and they were burning up. Fever, he said, voice tight with panic. Both of them. It spiked an hour ago. I gave them medicine, but they won't stop crying, and I didn't know what else to do. Bring them in. I was already reaching for Mason, whose face was flushed and tear-streaked. The moment I held him, his crying quieted to whimpers. It's okay, baby. I've got you. Theo handed me Milo too, and I settled on my small couch with both twins. They clung to me, their little bodies hot and trembling. Theo hovered anxiously, looking more disheveled than I'd ever seen him, wearing sweatpants and an inside-out t-shirt, hair wild. Sit down, I said gently. You're making yourself sick with worry. He collapsed beside me, so close our thighs touched. I can't lose them, he whispered. They're all I have. You won't lose them. It's just a fever. Babies get them all the time. I adjusted Milo in my arms. But you need to breathe, Theo. He did shakily. Then, without warning, he leaned his head against my shoulder. The gesture was so vulnerable, so unexpected, that I froze. Thank you, he murmured. For being here. For caring about them. Of course I care about them. My voice came out softer than intended. How could I not? We sat like that for hours, the twins dozing fitfully between us. Somewhere around 4 a.m., I felt Theo's breathing even out, his weight heavy against my side. He'd fallen asleep. I should have woken him. Should have maintained boundaries. Instead, I let him sleep, one hand gently stroking Milo's hair, hyper-aware of Theo's warmth against me. When dawn broke, he stirred. For a moment, he seemed disoriented, then realized where he was. Our eyes met, his face inches from mine. Kai, he said, and my name on his lips sounded like something precious. The twins' fever broke, I whispered. They're okay. I know. But he wasn't looking at his sons. He was looking at me, his gaze dropping to my lips. He leaned in slowly, giving me time to pull away. I didn't. The kiss was soft, tentative, asking permission. My heart hammered as I kissed him back, careful not to disturb the sleeping babies in our arms. When we broke apart, Theo rested his forehead against mine. I shouldn't want this, he breathed. You're my employee. This is inappropriate. Then we'll stop. But I didn't move away. I can't stop. His hand came up to cup my face. I haven't been able to stop thinking about you for weeks. The way you are with them. The way you make this place feel like a home. I'm falling for you, Kai, and it terrifies me. My breath caught. Theo. Tell me I'm alone in this, he said urgently. Tell me you don't feel it too, and I'll never mention it again. I should have lied. Should have protected myself. But I was so tired of fighting what I felt. You're not alone, I admitted. He kissed me again, deeper this time, and I felt something slot into place inside my chest. Like I'd been incomplete and hadn't known until this moment. But reality crashed back when Milo stirred, whimpering. We pulled apart, both breathless, and focused on soothing the babies. We need to talk about this, Theo said as he gathered Milo. Figure out what this means. I know. But fear crept in. What if he just wanted me because I was convenient? Because his children needed me? What if I was just a solution to his problem, not someone he actually wanted? As if reading my thoughts, Theo caught my hand. This isn't about the twins, he said firmly. This is about you. About us. I need you to know that. I wanted desperately to believe him. But as he left with the twins, promising we'd talk soon, doubt whispered in my mind. How could I know for sure? How could I trust that I was more than just a convenient caretaker who happened to bond with his children? The question haunted me for days, growing louder until I couldn't ignore it anymore. Everything fell apart on a Tuesday. I'd been working for Theo for 3 months, and we'd fallen into something beautiful and terrifying. Stolen kisses when the twins napped. His hand finding mine during dinner. Whispered conversations that stretched past midnight. But we'd never defined what we were, never talked about the future. Then his mother showed up. I was feeding the twins lunch when the penthouse door opened. A woman swept in, elegant, cold-eyed, wearing a designer suit that probably cost more than my yearly rent. Her alpha pheromones filled the room, sharp with disapproval. So you're the Omega my son hired, she said, looking me up and down like I was something unpleasant on her shoe. Mrs. Ashford. I stood carefully, wiping mashed banana off my hands. Theo didn't mention you were visiting. He doesn't know I'm here. She circled me slowly. I wanted to see for myself what kind of person has been taking care of my grandchildren. Milo started fussing, reaching for me. I picked him up instinctively, and Mrs. Ashford's eyes narrowed. How convenient, she said coldly. You've certainly wormed your way into their lives quickly. I'm just doing my job. Your job? She laughed, the sound cutting. Is that what you call it? I've seen this before, Omega. You bond with vulnerable children, make yourself indispensable, then trap the father into a relationship. It's calculated and pathetic. My face burned. That's not what this is. Isn't it? She pulled out her phone, showing me a photograph. Theo and me on the couch, his arm around my shoulders, both of us laughing at something Mason had done. My investigator took this last week. You look very comfortable in my son's home. In my son's life. Theo and we care about each other. Theo is lonely and desperate. Her voice was brutal. He needs help with his children, and you provide that. But don't fool yourself into thinking it's love. The moment those twins outgrow their attachment to you, you'll be replaced. You're a temporary solution, nothing more. Each word landed like a physical blow. Because wasn't that exactly what I'd feared? That I was just convenient? Just a caretaker who happened to fit a need? Get out, I whispered. Gladly. She headed for the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I don't blame you for trying. My son is wealthy and powerful. Any Omega would be tempted. But he'll never actually choose you. He'll never make you his mate. You're not good enough for this family. The door closed behind her with a soft click. I stood there, trembling, Mason and Milo both crying now because they could sense my distress. I held them close, trying to calm them, but Mrs. Ashford's words echoed in my head. You're not good enough. Temporary solution. He'll never choose you. When Theo came home that evening, I'd already made my decision. We need to talk, I said, voice steadier than I felt. He took in my expression and went pale. What happened? Your mother visited. I watched him tense. She made it very clear what she thinks of me. Of this situation. Kai, whatever she said. Was she wrong? The question burst out of me. Am I just convenient, Theo? Just the person who can calm your children? Because I need to know if this is real or if I'm fooling myself. How can you even ask that? He moved closer, but I stepped back. Because you've never said it. My voice cracked. We've been dancing around this for weeks, but you've never once said what you actually want from me. A nanny? A convenient omega? Something more? I can't keep living in this uncertainty. I want everything. His voice was raw. I want you in my life, in my home, in my bed. I want the twins to call you Papa. I want to wake up next to you every morning for the rest of my life. He stopped, breathing hard. I want you to be my mate. The words hung between us, everything I'd dreamed of hearing. But fear held me frozen. What if the twins stop needing me? I whispered. What if I'm only special to them right now, and in a year they don't care anymore? What happens to us then? Then we'll still have us. He closed the distance, cupping my face in his hands. You think I fell for you because of the twins? Kai, I fell for you because of who you are. The way you laugh at terrible jokes. How you reorganize my kitchen cabinets when you're anxious. The way you bite your lip when you're concentrating. I fell for you, not just what you do for my children. Your mother said. My mother has been wrong about everything that matters in my life. His thumbs brushed away tears I hadn't realized were falling. She was wrong about the twins, wrong about me, and she's wrong about you. You are good enough. You're better than I deserve. I'm scared, I admitted. I'm scared this is too good to be true. That I'll wake up and you'll realize you made a mistake. Then I'll spend every day proving you wrong. He pressed his forehead to mine. I love you, not because you're convenient. Not because the twins need you. Because you're you, and my life was empty before you stumbled into it. I love you too, I whispered, and saying it out loud felt like jumping off a cliff. I'm so in love with you it terrifies me. He kissed me then, deep and desperate, pouring everything into it. When we broke apart, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. My heart stopped. I bought this 2 weeks ago, Theo said, opening it to reveal a simple silver band. I've been carrying it around, waiting for the right moment. I don't care if this is too fast. I don't care what anyone thinks. Kai-chin, will you be my mate? Will you help me raise these boys and maybe give them siblings someday? Will you build a life with me? I looked at the ring, then at him, then toward the nursery where the twins slept peacefully. Everything I'd ever wanted was right here, terrifying and perfect. Yes, I breathed. Yes, 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring onto my finger, and I felt the bond snap into place, something deeper than words, tying us together. We sealed it with a kiss that tasted like tears and laughter and coming home. Later, we stood in the nursery doorway like we had so many times before. But now Theo's arm was around my waist, and I wore his ring, and everything had changed. They're going to be so excited when they wake up, Theo murmured. Think they'll understand what this means? They're smart. They'll figure it out. He pulled me closer. Welcome to the family, love. I leaned into him, watching our sons sleep, and finally let myself believe this was real. That I wasn't just a caretaker or a convenient solution. I was chosen. I was loved. I was home.